Hey everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. This is just my daily market scan to start the morning. I'm going to make it relatively quick today. It's got a lot of work on at the moment. In saying that, I said that the other day too, and it was like an hour long. So we'll see how we go, what we find along the way. Um, yeah, this move here is quite interesting. Um, Mainly because there are no vector candles in here. There's still reasonable volume, but no real vector candles. And technically, this should have been sort of more of a bearish region. But yeah, at this stage, I mean, the interesting thing about this arctangent oscillator is if your correlation is above zero, it tends to, like, the movement in this oscillator tends to follow price pretty well. And we are above that. If this correlation starts to tick up, I actually expect this to go quite bullish. Pull back into the 200 would make a lot of sense before we did that. If we fail the 200 again, and there are so many moving averages and stuff in here, we've really condensed this. So I do think the next move is going to be a pretty decent one. We're definitely coiling at the moment. It's just whether we're coiling for upside or downside, and this is getting a little tricky because we did recover these vectors that we mentioned yesterday on this move up. But we haven't really come into this area here, and I think kind of surprised at that. It might be just to try and suck in some more long liquidity before taking it. It could just be to finally take the short liquidity that's sitting up up a bit higher. Either way, I mean, you look at this chart and it's freaking markets looking like they're being manipulated really by the big guys. But there's a few other things that I'll point out in a sec around volumes and stuff that are interesting. But yeah, short time frames, this actually looks like a reasonable move to the upside. Like, it's almost looking like this might be the extent of it to the downside. Certainly change trends. If we get another higher high here, that will be a technical trend change on the 15-minute and probably on the hourly as well. Just have a quick look at the hourly. Yeah, so I mean, that's a higher low. If we get another higher high here, then trend change confirmed. In which case, yeah, the next couple of days we could actually take that liquidity up around the 99K area. Geez, it's leaving behind a lot of vectors though. We didn't really do this on the last push up. We know that it doesn't have to come back into these vectors quickly, but I'm just not sure that it would be something that's really. I'm not sure at this stage that it's going to leave it there, put it that way. So I'm just trying to get rid of that. All right. Yeah, the hourly at the moment, everything is tending towards bullish on the shorter time frames. So I just wanted to start off with that, and this could run a fair way. Like, typically when you're starting off down here, you actually get a fair run, and that's on sort of low volume sideways shit. Um, as you can see here, like by the time you're getting crossing zero, there's still normally more left in it, and we haven't even crossed zero yet, not even close. I'm a little surprised if I would be surprised if we don't pull back into it, but we're outside the Bollinger Band now, and yeah, it looks set to run, which would flip the trend to bullish as well. Um, and targets are sort of this upper Bollinger Band somewhere up around here, and by the time we get a few bars out, you're talking probably up into the low 99s. So let's just go and have a quick look. XRP is getting another bid at the moment as well. Probably going to recover this vector, I would say, on the daily. Still a bit more of a recovery. I mean, there's a chance we could just straight up run on BTC and the majors again. This is interesting. This the value area has actually changed on this in the last day. Yeah, the value area high has actually moved up, funnily enough, to the top of this wick here, which is sitting at about 98,750-ish. It's at 98,700. We'll look for some confluence around there, but at this stage, it looks like that's what it wants, somewhere around that high 98s, low 99s. As we said, it could wick out and take that liquidity just above 100K. But I mean, shit, it's waiting for it to get in here. Hopefully, if you're a buyer of Bitcoin, you sort of started to stack them a little bit earlier. But as we said, we haven't actually just turn off the weekly pivots. We haven't actually tapped into the monthly pivots yet, which it still tends to do that at some stage in the month. It's very rare that you will just break to the upside without touching at least the top pivot here. So be careful. I don't think this is the breakout run. Could be wrong. But it certainly looks like it wants some of that liquidity further up. And let's just have a look at where that liquidity is. So there is a fair chunk of it right here. As you can see, pretty soon after this 75 million bucks worth of liquidation level came into the charts, it started going to it pretty quickly. We have got something pretty similar in terms of the long side as well. But if we go back a couple of weeks, this is the potential target in the short term. And I'm talking the next couple of days. Whether we actually break out of the 100 and go on a massive run, if we get there, we'll just have to wait and see. But it is entirely possible that happens. And if you have a look at it, this move to the upside hasn't left a lot of vector candles. It hasn't left a hell of a lot of liquidation levels, at least on the near term. There is a fair chunk down here below that 90K still. So I'm kind of still wary of that. But yeah, it looks like it kind of wants looks like it almost wants that 100K level at least to take that liquidity, suck in a whole heap of, like, the amount of longs that will come into the charts at that point will be quite nuts. And what you got to consider is where are those longs going to put their stop losses, and most of them will put them either below here, so below 93K or around 93K, or below here, which is around 90K. Funnily enough, if that's the case, 90K becomes even more of a target. So typically you don't see that much liquidity taken and then just it keeps going to the upside. It tends to have a pullback, but yeah, it's looking very bullish on the short time frames. Interesting, there is the bid ask delta is actually red, which can signal a bit of a top. If we get a few more reds in a row on the hourly in particular, then that's probably a signal that that we need to pay attention to. Just going to have a look on the 15 minutes, see what's going on there. So cumulative volume delta is an interesting one. Typically, you want to look for divergences. So if the CVD is red and your candle is positive, chances are it's not. It's like a fake move to the upside. The CVD has pretty well followed this, at least the second part. This has sucked in quite a lot of longs at that point, but as you can see here, the bid-ask delta is still quite red, and that can go on for a while, but it does suggest that there will be a pullback relatively soon. It's just a matter of how far that pullback is, and at the moment, if we put in another higher low, do something like that, then it looks pretty set to actually try and take that liquidity, that short liquidity, potentially up to the 100K level. All right. Open interest has been increasing on the way down as well. So that's something to pay attention to. CoinAnk, we never really got a strong bottom signal off these, like not hugely strong. It's definitely a bottoming signal, but I guess it's been really choppy. So that's probably the strongest signal that we had back here. Starting to get a little overheated now, but as you can see, it's running for that liquidity. Probably a little pullback around this level here, which is, man, there's a lot of liquidations there, but as you can see, it's not leaving much grass behind on the liquidation levels. So typically a true move will do something like this. Like you won't see, like it almost happens so fast and people aren't believing it, and they don't get in early enough, and then you start to see them FOMOing in once you start getting higher, and then it'll pull back and take them out. So there will be a pullback. Don't think you got to FOMO in or anything at this stage, but it'll just be interesting because I think pullback into that 200 on the 15 minute is still something that I would kind of expect. It looks like it's doing a little pullback here, but open interest on CoinAnk has actually been pulling back a little bit on the 15 minute. So some people taking some profits on this move up, but yeah, generally this is looking reasonably good for a run up to this sort of level. So next week might be the pullback week, but at this stage, looking strong to the upside. Interesting on the volume leaders. This is the 2x Coinbase ETF. Hasn't been a lot of action on this run up. So this looks like accumulation. It looks like the buyers sort of these things have a longer term time frame, so they're quite happy to accumulate in this area and on the assumption that it is going to go on another run. So that's a strong sign for the market. Communication services are still trudging up. We haven't really had any major signs of a top on that. XLK, so technology sector, maybe a little bit of profit taking here, but generally same here. Like Coinbase is still getting some bids. No real major profit taking by the look of that. I mean, that might have been, but that was certainly, these are likely buys along the way. Interestingly, the iShares Bitcoin Trust, these were all sort of ones that we suspected were profit taking. We haven't really seen any major buy-in during this range, like no major dark pool activity. So I kind of want to see some before suggesting that we're going to the upside and going on the next run up, just because these happened really. Sorry, I'll just bring up. So yeah, they all happen pretty well at the high here. So typically you want to see a big buy after a dip before thinking that it's going to go up further. We're just sort of realistically been sideways in this. Yeah, I mean, it could be just accumulation still, but I don't know. It's not. It's not giving me any clear signal to the upside. Put it that way. Financial select sector got a pretty big buy. It is a contingent trade, but that looks like a buy to me. Looks like a bit of accumulation here as well. So I think that's something to keep in mind when I have a quick look at that chart. So on the overall weight of it, this is at least a decent looking short-term move. Interesting that the high volume area has actually moved to the same, basically the same level that the value area high was at, slightly above it. So if we do come up here, if we close below the value area high, then I would expect us to come back down. If we close above that on the daily, then it could actually be the start of the next run. I'm going to be watching that pretty closely. But I'm just wary of fake outs too at the moment. All right, let's have a look at the Qs. So Qs had a big day. Oh, that's a pretty good spot for it to pull back on that pivot. That's actually, sorry, didn't actually have a look at these. So stochastic momentum has ticked back up on Bitcoin, and BBWP is low. We could still get a bit of a fake out on that, but I mean it's looking like it wants to turn around. Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's still cheap compared to what it's going to be by the end of December, in my opinion. Not financial advice, but advanced decline line has ticked back below that moving average. So like I'm expecting stocks to pull back a bit. Might not be tomorrow, could have another day in it, but this doesn't necessarily follow the monthly pivots either. But yeah, momentum's still to the upside. It's still pretty overheated. BBWP still high, so we could keep running into the end of the week, and then next week is the pullback, which, looking at the stats more closely, does tend to be the second week of December that actually gives you a little bit of a pullback, and then into the Santa rally. Yeah, these are getting pretty close to the pivots at the moment on the NASDAQ. S&P 500, not necessarily the same. Equal weight is still pulling back. It's pulled back into the top pivot. That's interesting. It has crossed momentum to the downside, so I'm probably expecting a pullback, at least into this vector candle somewhere. The charts are suggesting it. It's just how long it lasts for, and does it even happen at all? Tricky to say when your momentum is still in that bullish control zone. If we get a stochastic momentum read comes in below that 40 level, then I'd be more inclined to believe in more downside. Interesting sell signal there on the bullish smart money indicator too. XLI getting a little buy today off the 13 EMA, sitting around the top one of those pivot levels there. RSPD. So XLY, XLP on the equal weight is still actually looking strong. So it kind of looks like there might be, this might almost be the extent of the pullback. This is the one that had a decent buy on it, effectively, financial services sector. This is regional banking, but similar sector. So this may actually be the bottom of this little pullback for KRE as well. ITB, so home construction and home builders are still pulling back pretty hard. So this is early indicator that there's something wrong in the economy. What the frick? This has given me an audio stream issue. Hopefully that's not the case. Everything looks fine at my end. Anyway, I'll keep going. So DJI Gold has jumped. Interesting. This is the fucking Donald Trump media ticker. So I just need to do proper one. Do that. What the fuck? Hang on. I should have it down here. Oh man. Didn't save that fucking thing. Fuck it. DJT Gold is actually pulling back. I'll fix that up for tomorrow. But This is Donald Trump media versus gold. So yeah, DJT gold is actually pulling back a little. DJI is having a good day, but DJI gold is still fairly flat. But still trending to the upside. So again, that's suggesting that the economy isn't too bad for the time being. VIX has had a mini spike, like a little uptick. It's very low. Yeah, the fact that this is so low and getting ready for a move, we could just go sideways like this for a month, but it's not looking like that. Like advanced decline lines pulling back a little bit. The one thing, skew only had a small downtick yesterday, very small. So it's actually suggesting that there's still a chance that there's more upside here. It's not a indicator that there's anything particularly wrong. The other thing I wanted to look at, where's my bloody trend line one? That's annoying. Interestingly, the RSP's probably got the best trend line on it at the moment. And it would make so much sense for RSP to pull back in here, which the market will come back with it. I'd expect that to be the extent of it, though. So, I'm going to jump straight to TLT. It's had a bit of a buy again, which is good. Momentum's pretty overextended at the moment, but let's see how it goes. Quick look at the Japanese market. It's going okay. Quick look at the DAX too. So the DAX has broken out. That's pretty close to a confirmed breakout, actually. 2 closes above that trend, 2 consecutive closes. Maybe a little pullback into there, but another day up and then a pullback would actually make a lot of sense. Just to retest that level before moving higher. But this is looking pretty strong. Chinese markets didn't really do much. Still looks like it wants to try and break out. Pretty flat day yesterday, but I mean, trend is kind of to the upside. Be looking, a target would be at least 20,800 and see what happens. High yield junk is moving up as well. So again, this trend is sort of up. Lots of mixed signals at the moment. I think what this is suggesting is potentially another update into the end of the week. I have to wait and see what happens with job numbers and stuff tomorrow to see where we go from here. But I mean, at the moment, it wouldn't surprise me if we actually don't get much of a pullback and just fakes everyone out. The only issue is there's smart money is not in the game at the moment. The smart money, dumb money ratio is way off. Smart money is just waiting for a pullback. 2-year, 10-year. So 2-year and 10-year both sort of pulling back a little bit, which you kind of want to see. Copper, well, it's looking stronger, but doesn't look super keen at the moment. You want to see a big green candle up through this uh, 250 EMA. It's the 800 in there as well, I think. Gold, gold's still holding this level, which is a little surprising to me. I thought it would pull back a little bit further. Um, so that's something to keep in mind. BBWP looks like it wants to reset, but it's not really pulling back as much as I would expect. Jobs numbers could actually send this back up into a bit of a bull run. Silver is going better though. So silver looks like it wants to lead the way. Still haven't broken above this area though. Need clean close above sort of this wick here. 31.5 would suggest that silver's going to go on a run. Gold will probably go with it to a degree, but silver will probably go harder. US oil is still struggling. Starting to form a trend line here too. Starting to wedge. It's probably not the best example of that. It's probably there. Need to resolve this on oil. That'll give us the indication of where the market thinks the economy is actually at the moment. Yeah, Dixie looks like it's probably going to go on another run, which again, if it does, that would kind of lean towards stocks coming back a little bit. So lots of mixed signals. It's been choppy. Percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average did pull back a little bit yesterday. Mag 7's still running. So there's rotation in the market still, definitely. Nvidia's reclaimed this trend line. That's interesting. Probably wants to recover this vector candle, which would be quite bullish. I'm going to be watching that closely, see what it does, what the reaction is around the top of this vector here. If it closes another high above that and confirms above that, then that's probably pretty bullish for the market. Semiconductors are actually probably going to get a bid too, actually, now that I remember. Semiconductors, what is it? I'll do this one. Nah, it's not. Fuck, I can't remember what the semiconductors ticker is. Anyway, have a look at the semiconductors ticker. It is coming off a pretty big trend line. So it would make sense if semiconductors actually go on a run. Whilst probably some of the other market sectors pull back a little bit. So yeah, it's really a tough one. Total crypto market cap's actually taken a bump as well. There is money flowing in, it would seem. General. Still ranging on this. If we break below this level here and close a daily below these candles, then Bitcoin's probably going to go on the next run. That would sort of be one confirmation to look for if that's the case. This really surprises me. So Ethereum BTC, these guys are closing ETH BTC longs that are not in the money. There's no way these can be in the money. Because the ETH BTC chart, let's do price scale. So the ETH BTC chart has been dropping ever since these guys have been stacking the ETH BTC longs. And, we've dropped to a level now that just most of them would have been bought before we got to this level, like below this level on ETH BTC. It's like the traders that are doing this have lost faith that ETH is actually going to go on a run. That's what this is suggesting to me. So, yeah, and look, given what all the other coins are doing and have done, like Solana and XRP and those other big guys, it could be the case that ETH has lost favor. It's still going to be there. It's still the backbone of a lot of layer twos. But in terms of utility and usage and just people wanting it, it looks like it might level off, become a bit more of a stable coin, become the aider of this cycle. So let's have a look at Bitcoin longs. This is the other thing that's kind of suggesting to me that we haven't bottomed yet. I just don't think these guys will be offloading so many of their longs at this level. I think they're offloading them now, waiting for a pullback, and then they'll start reaccumulating on the pullback. It's just something sus about this too. Shorts are definitely dropping though, so that could just be most of them are getting liquidated. This chart doesn't really give you much edge. But yeah, ETH, this one. So ETH BTC, and the funny thing is ETH BTC has actually jumped a little bit, and ETH's gone on a pretty decent run. But it just surprised me that so many of these ETH BTC longs are being closed at the moment, because ETH's doing pretty well what we thought it would. It's come back. That's a fantastic retest of that value area high and the top of that trend line. Like ETH looks like it's going on a run. Why the hell are those people closing their longs? It's so bizarre. Anyway, ETH will probably head to 4,100 in the next day. It might push straight through that. It might actually do a bit of a run up, pull back into that level, and then go. That would make a lot of sense. Oops. All right. So obviously the volume's been there on this run as well. Definitely a lot of volume today. So good move on ETH. I don't know why those people are closing their longs so early. Yeah, Bitcoin on CME is actually, CME is 99,400 already. That's one to watch. Like if CME breaks above, like closes a daily above these wicks, then I think the next leg is upon us. And stochastic momentum is just about to tick to the upside in the bullish control zone. BBWP is coming into a reset. Something going on here. What I want to see is a good break, retest, and then move away. And I want to see that retest on the hourly at least, just to confirm this as a break. At the moment, it's found some resistance, but geez, this would be a good fake out if it does push up and come back in, because generally looking very bullish. Have a quick look at Solana. So Solana looks like it might have found a base here. Good recovery of this vector too so far. Not looking as bullish, but stochastic momentum's coming off a pretty low level, and ticking to the upside as well. So a few of these others are getting a bid. In general, looking pretty strong. Oh, that's a good one. Bytes, $10. Sweet. Nero, yeah, Rudin. That's actually a nasty looking chart there. That's recovered the vector candles and looks like a hanging man candle at the moment. Mudeng needs to really close strongly here. Otherwise, I would actually expect more downside on that. Pole looks like a recovery of this wick. Typically, when you see this, it might be a couple more days of green, but then you'd expect a pullback. Just similar to this sort of thing here. It may even take the high, similar to what it did back here before pulling back. Yeah, interesting recovery of this vector on Pepe. Like, these pullbacks may not last long. Looking generally strong, but Dot's getting another bid. Interesting. Yeah, Ajish, if you're watching, I agree with you. Looks like they are coming for that 100K level. What the fuck's going on there? Whoa, that was some pretty significant moves after I looked at that this morning. So we have flipped bullish. Expect pullbacks into this level, but not necessarily straight away. It looks like it wants that liquidity. Just go back in here and have a quick look at where we're at. It's getting close to the bottom chunk of liquidity there. Yeah, and very close to this. I'd be surprised if we don't take that level and potentially up into that 100K. But this move is quick. Like, you don't get a move like that and then it suddenly shoots to 102 or 105 or anything. That that wouldn't make sense here. It might take a sideways rest, but this is a quick move. Actually, I'm just going to have a quick look at. So we're still getting some red candles in here too, but it's starting to turn green again. So, yeah, interesting. Looks close to a pullback. This candle here might just recover the wick on that hanging man. So it probably just recovering up to about that 98,500, but at the same time, on such a run like this where it's going for liquidity, that could actually push higher. Good run though. If you bought in at the bottom there, that's a pretty solid effort. And as I said, this indicator here is suggesting that we got more upside to go. So 100K is looking pretty freaking close at the moment. At which point, probably take a bit more liquidity and then pull back a little bit. At least a little bit. So, yeah, very interesting. The pullback might only last back into this vector here. 96,800. Going to be watching the reaction around that 100K pretty closely. Notice Bitcoin's running harder than most at the moment. Look at that. That's a 20% day on Gala as well. Yeah, interesting. It's looking like if Bitcoin breaks 100K and goes to new highs again, the overall market's looking really frothy. It's almost like this bull run is happening too quickly. Like people want to make their money and get out before next year for some reason. I'd even start taking some profit off the table on some of these that I've got. Oh, that's a nasty rejection. Expect a little pump back up on this, but that's suggesting downside. Some of these have had pretty good runs so far. Yeah, I might take a little bit of profit on some of these. Ape, I'll probably leave though. Ape's probably like I'm not in and out too quickly on some of these. It might be time for a gaming run actually. Look at how far Ape's got to go just to get back to a new all-time high. All right. Yeah. Interesting. Very bullish looking market in crypto. Stocks are still hit and miss. I think there's a bit of rotation going on, but overall, there's still, it looks like bullish into the end of the year at least. Whether we get a pullback next week or not, just depend on the flows coming in, but I don't think it's going to be a big correction at this stage if it is. Filecoin hit our top of our vector. Looks like it wants a little bit more. Nearly $10 is a target, but whether it finds a bit of resistance here, there is a pretty good resistance level right where it's at the moment. So just keep that in mind if you've got file. Okay, that'll do. I'll